If you're young and wanting to scale up a property portfolio, in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly how you can do that by renting your way to financial freedom. If you're interested in what my thoughts are, definitely keep watching. Hey guys, my name's Ravi and welcome back to Personal Finance with Ravi Sharma. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button because I talk about real estate, all things personal development and financial freedom. Now I run one of Australia's fastest growing buyers agencies. If you're new here onto the channel, you should go and check out the 900 plus other videos I've made all throughout the pandemic, predicting what happens with real estate and everything in between. If you need the assistance in finding an investment property anywhere in the country and you want a team of strategists to grow your portfolio, then definitely use the link in the description below to book a free call with our team. I want to get to the bottom of this myth that if someone is renting, that means they're poor. Someone might come across my content and say, Ravi, you talk a lot about real estate, but I don't see a mansion. I don't see Lamborghinis. That means you're poor. And when you find out that I currently Rentvest, you're going to be like, this guy is definitely poor. He must be a scammer online. But the reality is everyone's strategy is different and unique to themselves. I'm going to walk you through my strategy as to why I do it, but it's something you may want to consider because over the years, I've conducted over 800 strategy sessions. I speak to a lot of people and get a lot of insights from my team. And what I've realized is a lot of people, including yourself maybe, are doing things based on what other people think is acceptable. It might be your parents, might be your siblings, it might even be that random uncle who thinks he knows everything. I don't have PTSD from an uncle that I listen to, but anyways, I want this video to give you enough courage to be able to go out there and do what you want on your own terms. Because the reality is, you're the one waking up on Monday morning to go to work. It's not someone else that's going in. And if you can go and create a life of financial freedom by the time you're 40, 50, and 60 and live on your own terms, that's a hell of a lot better than trying to impress some person that doesn't even care about you. Now let's jump into my whiteboard here and really figure out, why is rent dead money? Why have we always been taught it is dead money? Now I'm going to tell you straight up front, if you're only renting and that's all the money that's going into it and the rest of the money you blow out because you want to go on fancy dinners, then yes, rent is dead money. This video is not for you. You should probably exit the video now. But if you're someone that is purely buying a property to live in because you think that's how you gain wealth and create wealth, well, you're also going to be wrong, but this video is perfect for you because it may not even be your idea that you have to go and buy something, live in there. It might be your partner that suggested that. And I urge you to go and sit down with your partner and watch this video because men lie, women lie, but facts don't lie. So let's jump into it. If we go down the path of buying something for ourselves, these are the things that we need to consider. You're most likely going to have to put a 5 to 10% deposit down. You've got a stamp duty payment as well. You've got upfront costs like pest and build inspections, conveyancing, and then you also have a mortgage, which now means you're also locked in. You can't simply say, I'm living in this area and I've lived here for the next 9 to 12 months, and I go, hey, actually, I don't like this area. If I don't like this area, maybe I should just pick up my stuff and leave. Now, if you decide to do that, you've now put yourself in a position where unfortunately you can't. Because you can't just sell that property. You would end up losing money given the fact that you've paid stamp duty and all the transaction costs. When you decide to sell, you're going to have to pay an agent their fee as well. So now by buying a place which you think is only there to create wealth because all Australian real estate goes up, you've now locked yourself into a pretty big trap. Now I'm 32 and I see a lot of people around my age, friends, family friends and everything in between that go out and make this mistake. And I'm like, why? And when I find out the real reason they've done it, it's because, hey, it might be just easier. I don't want to go out there, do the legwork of trying to find an investment property. What happens if I buy in the wrong area? It's just easier if I just buy a place, I'll live in it. I'll justify it in my own head that I'm getting ahead. Now, let's flip over to the other side before I share all of my thoughts. If you go ahead and rent, you're looking at no upfront costs. You're looking at the freedom to be able to leave whenever you like. Yes, you can sign a 12-month lease, but if you decide to break it before that, you'll have a break fee, but you can effectively leave. Unlike a mortgage, you can leave. That allows you to live wherever you like, so you can try areas before you buy. Now think about this logically, okay? And I know some people have different thoughts around this, but this is how I think about it. If I've never lived in an area, wouldn't it make more sense to either rent in and around that area, visit that area consistently before deciding to buy something? Because most likely if you're doing it in Sydney, you're probably paying close to $1 million. That to me makes logical sense. What doesn't make logical sense to me is when people go out there, buy a place, and some people may choose to buy a home and land package where you can't actually rent in that area, you're pretty much putting yourself in a position where you have to like that place. And you have no idea how it's actually going to feel. You don't even know what shops are around the corner. You don't know what the type of people are going to be around. And yet you're willing to go and invest into one of the biggest investments you've ever made, which is your own place. To me, it doesn't really make sense. And that's why there are other ways to not only get the best in terms of lifestyle, but also creating financial freedom. You can create a lot of wealth by doing this. And it's exactly why I do it. Now, there's a couple of things you need to factor in. You've got your holding costs, and we're going to go through an example to really showcase that. You've got your borrowing capacity, which a lot of people misunderstand. When I talk about borrowing capacities, people say, okay, well, wouldn't it be better if I can buy my own place? At least I get the grants and things like that. Yes, but your principal place of residence is bad debt. And I don't make those rules up. That's how the bank sees it. So they may be happy to give you a loan, but the reality is they say, yeah, we'll give you a lower interest rate, but this is unproductive debt. So when you come in to buy an investment property after that, you're probably out of luck. And they didn't tell you that before you bought the place. They just want to get you into the $1 million property, you're happy, or you try and justify it to yourself that you're happy. And then you go, well, now I can't even invest, and now I'm stuck with this one property. So if you want to go and upgrade your portfolio and whatnot, you pretty much can't do it unless your income significantly goes high. Now, where I'm going to put a caveat into this is that if there's two of you and you're making a shitload of money and you know that your growth in income is coming, then you might find that you've bought a place over the last 5 years and it's grown in value. You can use the equity to keep building out your portfolio. But 95% of all people that I speak to are in the boat where they've bought something, most likely to take advantage of the first homeowners grants, and then going ahead and saying, well, okay, I've justified it because I don't want to pay rent, because I don't want to pay someone else's mortgage. But there is a better way. And that's why there's so few people that are doing this and actually doing it well that end up living a life of financial freedom, which means early retirement. If you think about lifestyle, you might have to move from the area you really love because you can't afford to buy there, and you end up buying in another area just simply because you can't afford to live in the area that you want. Now tell me how you win. Especially if you're in your 20s and 30s, you're probably wanting to be close to bars, close to cafes, and probably close to the city so you can go out and about. But if you now find yourself buying a place and it's out really far into the west or down south, up north, whatever, you've now compromised on your lifestyle. All of your friends may be in the other location, so you're now not seeing them as often, and we all know life gets hard as we become adults, and all because you got told you need to buy your own place. It sounds really silly at this point. And most people will buy their own place without a strategy. You think it's a wealth building tool, but if you don't have a strategy, it could be the worst thing that you've ever done. And that's why I want to figure out, why are people still buying? These are the sort of questions I started asking my team. I asked the people directly as well, and boy was I not surprised with the answers. So let's figure it out. Why are people still doing this? I still speak to people. People have seen my journey. You've been following me for a couple of years and you say, oh, well, no, I still think that I'm going to go buy my own place. And it's usually because the partner is saying, no, I don't care. I want my own place. I want peace of mind. But what gives me peace of mind is knowing I'm generating wealth, plus I can live in an area that I actually like. That gives me more peace of mind. I might be wired differently, but hit that like button if you're thinking exactly how I'm thinking. You can try where you want to buy. You can rent, which gives you the freedom to, travel, do other things, but also keep investing. And then you have a portfolio which allows you to then, even if you decided to sell all of it, you'll have more money to be able to purchase your own place rather than getting stuck into something you can afford now when your incomes aren't as high. So these are the things that people told me. It's, what are our parents going to say? Our parents have told us that we should probably buy something. Even if it's a unit, just buy. People have also said, oh, look, I know the area. It's a lot easier. I think it's going to grow. These are things that are just emotional reactions to something that needs to be assessed logically. And you also don't need to pay for a BA because, hey, I don't want to go out there and maybe I've got to find an investment property. Oh, I've got to use Ravi's services. Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to find the place myself. If you're at this point thinking that Search Property, the buyer's agency that I run, is just purely to go and find you a property, there are people out there that are much cheaper than us. You could go out there and say, hey, look, how much do you charge? And they'll say, oh, 10, 12, 13K. And that is cheaper than our service. But you might go, well, they can only provide me the property. That's all they do. But with us, it's not only just buying the property. That's only part of that service. What comes with it is so much more. You're looking at strategy building, you're looking at portfolio check-ins, you're then looking at dedicated support, and you're looking at the most important thing in a moving market is speed. Anyone can find you a property, but if you can't find that property within 3 months, well, what's the point? You're probably better off doing it yourself. And so this is that whole outsource mentality. If you go and buy back your time, as Dan Martell talks about in his book, he talks about how you can outsource aspects of your life that you, one, may not have the time, or two, you may not actually enjoy, or three, you don't have the expertise in. So let's look at an example to bring it all together. Now, the example is that you buy because you don't want to rent. Keep parents happy. All right, let's see how happy they'll be when we look at the numbers. So we're assuming a purchase price of 700K. And I know, depending on where you live, 700K doesn't buy you much. In other places, it buys you a house. So take what you want from that. Now, even if you got in at a 5% deposit, that would be $35,000. Your loan would be $665,000. Stamp duty would be $26,000. However, you might be able to get a grant or offset this for the first time owner grants and things like that, and stamp duty exemption. But your upfront could cost you about $60,000. So it looks pretty good on paper with the fact that you can own a piece of real estate for $700,000 and you only had to put 60K down. So what do the repayments look like? Because at this point, some people are finding it hard to get into the property, so the deposit. But if you can figure that out, most people think, oh, thank God, I can buy the property. That's amazing. That's actually the easiest part, to come up with the deposit. Believe it or not, that is the easiest part. And I'll tell you why. Because it's the repayments you have to do for the next 30 years is what kills people. When you check out these numbers, you're gonna start realizing how crazy this is. When you think about a $665,000 loan, interest only at 6%, means that you're paying almost $40,000 a year, which is about $767 per week. When you factor in that you have to also pay for rates, insurances, and any other maintenance that comes up, you're probably closer to about $850 to $900 a week. Let's just put that into context. If you're doing $800 a week towards the repayments, towards just holding the property, and mind you, this is interest only. You can't even justify saying, oh, at least I'm paying my own mortgage. No, you're not. You're just paying the interest, which means instead of paying interest plus principal, you're only paying the cost of borrowing being interest. That would be the equivalent of you paying rent. Now you can see what connection I'm making here. If you think rent is dead money because you're paying someone else's mortgage, you're paying interest only repayments, which means technically this is also wasted money. And this is compounded if your property doesn't grow. Now, in this case, I'm gonna assume, because I'm having a good day here, I'm gonna assume 3% growth. Now, if you get 3% growth on a property like this, you'll get $21,000 worth of capital gains and it's tax-free. Now it's sounding pretty good, but you've got to get 3%, okay? Now, the key is that if you look at certain areas in and around Australia, you might find that there's some areas growing more than this, and that would be amazing, but there are other areas that are going backwards. And if you get into a property like this and it goes backwards and there's no growth, well then, are you just keeping up with inflation and this looks like a pretty bad deal? I would say so. Now, assuming if there is no growth, you're then paying about $800 a week, and that would be wasted money because now you're justifying to yourself, you've put money into this property hoping it grows. And I know a lot of people got wrecked in areas like Parramatta in Sydney, Rouse Hill up north, West Sydney, because we justified to ourselves, we need property, it is the best thing ever. You're not gonna hear me come out and say that every time you buy, you're gonna make a lot of money. I try and keep it as real as possible. Now, if you went ahead and for argument's sake said, I really like this area, and instead of buying it for 700K, I could just go rent it, you'd probably be paying about $550 a week. So if you're just gonna go ahead and waste your money anyway, you may as well pay $550, have all the choice, rather than going and putting $60,000 of your cash, now you're out of cash, and getting locked into a mortgage in an area that you don't actually like. Now, if you think about this and you went down that path, you would have no holding costs, you'd have no stress, you wouldn't be locked in, and you'd have more choice. This is the whole game, guys. It's not about, oh, I can go and buy a yacht, or I have so much money, I sleep and then money falls out of my pockets because that's how much money I make. I don't know what ideas people have for passive income, but anyways, it's about creating choice. It's about how I can choose to go to work, how I can reduce my hours, how my partner doesn't have to work, I can take care of the kids, I can take them to school, or I can just simply choose where I want to live without stress. This is how you do it, all right? I'm going to show you exactly how this works. Now, let's say you did rent vesting instead. Your outgoing is $550 because you're renting in that place. And let's say you go ahead and buy a place for $500,000. We do this on average every single week. We buy about 15 to 20 properties every single week. Before you jump into the comments and say, no, that's not possible, we do it every single week. And if you need the help because you think it's impossible, definitely reach out. Because the days of the 300K properties, when I was making videos on this channel, I said, hey, it's gonna go soon. And they went. I said the same thing for 400K properties, and we're at that point now where it's super difficult to even get something that's decent at that quality, at that price. Now I'm saying the same thing about 500K properties. And that's why I'm saying you need to be moving with speed. Now let's look at what your cash flow would look like. Given interest rates at about 6.5% interest only, you're gonna be negative about 150 bucks a week. Your holding cost is about 700 bucks a week. You've got the property, which is negatively geared by 150 bucks. We're not even gonna factor in all of your tax deductions given you've got an investment property that is now got productive debt on it. We know that we may get depreciation. We definitely have negative cash flow, which also reduces our taxes. We're not gonna factor those things in. We're just gonna take dollar for dollar. And in this case, the rent that you have to pay, which is 550, plus the negative cash flow of 150, means that you're at about 700 bucks a week, negative. You compare that to the first example, that's getting to about 800 to 850 a week, okay? So we're already in the positive. But now here's where it starts making a lot more sense. Assuming 7% growth, you're looking at about $35,000 in year one, and after 5 years, it would be worth about $701,000. That means you're making a whopping $200,000 tax-free in 5 years, because it's compounding. Now that's assuming a 7% growth. What happens if you did 10% or 11%? And you'd go, well, what happens if you did 3%? Well, that's why you're paying someone to go and do it, because they get results. Now for me, I've been building out my own real estate portfolio for almost 11 years. And in those 11 years, it just so happens 11, because I average about 11% capital growth. Now, one could go and argue saying, well, the last couple of years has been crazy. The pandemic has pushed prices so much higher, and that's true. But if I did my numbers even pre-pandemic, I'm still looking at 10% growth annually. And that's because we have a system, I've developed it myself, we've gone out there and done it at scale so we can help more people like yourself. So when I look at 7%, I'm saying, well, that's our base case. I'm probably going to be achieving closer to 10%, but for the sake of this example, we'll go with 7%. Now, after 3 years, you're probably going to be cash flow positive. And after 15 years, it's probably paying for your rent as well. So if you decided to rent for the next 15 years, this property itself, because it would be positive cash flow by quite a bit, over 15 years, the rent increases, you'd be in a position where the property pays your own rent. And that is absolutely wild. But that is the true level of financial freedom. It's where your passive income can replace your active income when it comes to your active expenses. Now, after hearing all that, are you still thinking that people that rentvest are still poor because they don't own their own place? Well, let's look at my example because again, everyone would love to shit on me. Let's put my life out there. I currently rent a $2.2 million penthouse, okay? Now, if I chose to buy this place, upfront payment would be about 10%, which means $220,000. Stamp duty is $103,000, and that means I would have to pay $323,000 to get into this property today. All right, so I said earlier, this is the easy part, getting in. $323,000 doesn't sound easy, but that is the easier part because at 90% loan at 6% interest only, I'm now paying almost $120,000 just to fund this mortgage. I'm not even paying my debt down, I'm just paying the interest. That would mean I'm paying almost $2,300 per week just to live here. And I can say, hey, I own a penthouse in Sydney. How good's that? But you know what? Nobody cares. And instead of paying $2,300, I pay $1,340 a week. Now, to some, that may seem really expensive, and to others, that means, hey, that's not much. That's pretty good value. To me, it suits my lifestyle and I can manage that expense. I like what this property gives me because of the links to the city, as well as where I'm at in relation to my family. So, in this case, if I decide to go and rent, which is exactly what I've done, I can now use the $300,000 to go towards productive assets. And what I could do is simply buy 3 properties at 500K, which would mean a total of $1.5 million. At 7% growth, I'm making $105,000 every year, tax-free. So in the first example, I'm losing money. In the second example, I'm making more than $100,000 tax-free. And just for context, that would mean I would have to be making almost $180,000 in my annual salary just to make that money. And I would have to work like a dog. And in this case, I would have to be paying so much taxes. However, I could do that on repeat without having to lift a finger. In addition to that, I've also got the savings of more than 900 bucks every single week, which means now I can live the lifestyle I want. I can go out there to the fancy dinners, although KFC is not that expensive, and I get best of both worlds. I can suss out if I want to live in this area, and if I don't, I can pick up and leave and I can go somewhere else. When I decide to buy my own principal place of residence, I want to make sure that I've built out the lifestyle I want, I've gone out there and sussed out the area really well, and I've also got myself and my family into a position of financial freedom. That is the goal, is I can say, buy all these properties, but then I can never own my own house. I'm not saying that. I'm saying to me, it's a very emotional decision. I definitely want that security of my own home. But I just think that people are going about this wrong. They go out there, buy the wrong property, then they're stuck for the next 30, 40 years, only to move into another property where they don't really like it either, and they continue working in a job they may not likely like. So for me, when I'm thinking about why people don't do this, it is coming down to the fear of being judged by others. And that is something I don't care about. That's why I've got this YouTube channel and I talk about finance, which is one of the most taboo things to be talking about. But I put my life out there with my numbers. And the reason I do that is because I want to give you guys the courage to be able to have these chats in your living room. Have it with your partner. If you need help and you need to figure out what that strategy looks like, reach out to the team. It's completely free to have that chat and we can see how we can really go and accelerate your portfolio, scale it up so that you have the life of freedom in the next 3 to 5 years. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks, guys.